Hello everyone, this is quite of an hipster build, basically my take on the Power Siphon Locust Mine build that is very popular this league, but as a trickster using Jungran build. We are using Warden, Tinctures, Manastorm, and Indigan on this version. So it's a pretty hipster build with a lot of complicated mechanics. Oh, and of course we are using Blood-Soaked Blade. Um, let's showcase the build while we discuss about it a bit. So, is this a good build? Yes and no. The build is good if you don't mind playing with a macro. This build uses a macro. You simply can't take care of so many buffs, so many cooldowns at the same time. You will see later that there is a lot of shit going on in this build, so we need to take track of so many things and press so many buttons. Even a melee build doesn't press as many buttons as we do, so it's pretty bad, yes. But at the same time, everything can be automated with a macro, so pretty happy if you want to use a macro. GG doesn't like that, but it won't stop me. Using a macro, this build actually doesn't have that many buttons. It basically have chill charge and attack, and that's pretty much it. Oh, and yeah, and stop the macro button, because when you are doing nothing, just stop the macro. Pause the macro rather. If you don't mind doing that, we can now talk about the build itself. And even if you hate macros and don't plan on using this build, you can stay for the mechanics and the interaction between the items, the passive trees, and so on. So basically, how did it compare to the trickster version? The main point of this build is damage. The main selling point is that it costs nothing to actually build this build. Oh shit. It costs nothing to get this build going off. And it's around, at the moment, we will see later, it's 15 divines at the moment for around 15 million DPS, while we maintain good defense, as you can see. We are level 94. We could be 95, but I screwed up a bit a few maps ago and died 3 times like an idiot. But we could be much higher. This build, so for very cheap you get very good damage, and each upgrade is quite cheap for a lot of damage. And then if you play the very complicated version with even more macro involved, and you pour like around 50 divines this time, you can get a very solid build of around 60 million damage, something around that. You can even, if you invest even more, you can get around 80 to 90%, 90 million DPS. As you can see, I killed the boss of the map here. I didn't even see him. And remember, this is 15 divs. Basically, all the divs are here. This is 4 divs, this is 7 divs. Everything else in the build is around 3 to 4 divs, maybe less. A random Indigan, you don't care about the roll that much. It's 15 div, a perfect roll is 50 divs. Manastorm, this is a near perfect roll for this build, and it was 15 chaos. Yeah, 15. This is a Chevron with, it doesn't even have catalysts. So 10 chaos. This is 1 chaos. This was 10 chaos, I think, something like that. This was 40 chaos. It's pretty good for 40 chaos, but to be honest, you can get one with much less stats and it would still be enough. This was 20 chaos. They are really crap. You can probably get better ones now for 20 chaos. Laving Spirit is 1 chaos. And before you ask, yes, it is mandatory to use Laving Spirit, you have no choice. The tinctures are around 50 chaos each. If you want perfect rolls, it's 1 to 2 divs. And then I'm using this Impossible Escape here, 30 chaos. The best one is here for 4 divines. So very cheap here. It's only 10% more damage here. And a Thread of Hope, small ring, whatever the elemental resistances you need. I got this one for 30 chaos, I think. And that's oh yeah, Nelsie Mine, which is around 30 to 40 chaos at the moment. So pretty inexpensive, actually. Especially if you don't use a 6 link, only a 5 link. The cost is under 10 divines. So let's explain the mechanics a little bit. Basically, Manastorm sacrifice a huge amount of damage, mana, all of our mana, 100% of mana, to give a huge amount of added maximum lightning damage to attacks and to spells. We are using an attack, by the way. So because we are using an attack, when we throw our mines, it doesn't burn our mana. Okay? So to trigger Manastorm, we press Convocation, which is an instant spell. See, all of our mana is gone now. How do we get back our mana? Usually when you play Manastorm, you play Lich, and you leech back your whole mana bar in 1 second. Unfortunately, we are a miner, and because we are a miner, we can't leech mana. There is no way, no uniques, no nothing. We can't leech mana, so this option is out. Mana regeneration. You won't find a lot of ways to regenerate 5k mana every 4 seconds. It requires a shit ton of investment. Best way to go around it is to use the Manastorm line, which is increased mana recovery from Flask. This didn't exist before. This is last league buff. Insane. Manastorm was limited to Leech before, but this line actually allows us to combo with Tides of Time. Tides of Time grant 100% increased mana recovery from Flask. So together, there are 200 increased mana recovery from Flask. Using Lavienga Spirit, we now recover around 9k mana in 3 seconds. Same. Which means 3k mana per second. Basically, when we press Lavienga Spirit, we need around 2 seconds to fulfill our mana bar back to full. And we only need to do that every 4 seconds. This is the duration of Manastorm buff. Basically, that's the idea. Because we're using tinctures, and tinctures deactivate themselves if you reach 0 mana, and I tested everything, by the way, having extremely high regen, and so on and so on. There is no way around it. If you want to use tinctures and Manastorm, you have to use Bloodsuit Blade. This way, they don't stop when you burn all of your mana. Okay? Of course, we are using the package of Warden with this node. This node deactivate when you have 12 mana, so you now linger for 6 seconds and you make your Tinctures last cooldown for 6 seconds, so you have permanent Tinctures. And of course, the macro will automate all of this, as you can see. Yeah, it deactivates itself, and then when the macro is down, boom, cooldown is down, sorry, the macro activates them instantly. Okay? That's one thing we don't have to care about. The macro also automate the fact that when you use Convocation, you instantly use Lavienga Spirit. And if you are wondering why it's important that it's at the same times, it's simply because when you use Convocation, you have no mana, you can't cast anymore. Your mana is gone, so you can't do anything. Well, you can chill charge around, put life stab on your chill charge if you don't want to die for some weird reasons. But if you press Convocation and Lavienga Spirit at the same time, you never have this problem. You never stop casting, as you can see. Okay? Oh, well, I did burn spamming, I did burn everything. Rules. Another good part of this combo is that Tides of Time regenerate your mana flask charge, and we regenerate enough charges so that we pretty much almost never run out of flask charge. If you want, you can take here mana flask gain 1 charge, or 20% chance to gain a flask charge when you deal critical strike. This is purely for bossing. This allows you to never run out of flask. You can also get, for example, here the Traitor Keystone from a Timeless Jewel and remove a flask, for example this one, and now you have permanent flask for these 2 flasks, for example, for bosses. You will never run out of it. That's actually what I'm planning to do when I go boss rushing with this build, or uber bossing, or whatever I will do with this build. Another cool interaction is Indigon, because we are permanently basically using Lavienga Spirit. Indigon as non-instant mana recovery from flask is also recovered as life. So we basically recover our life, all of our life, instantly. Or instantly, well, we basically get to full life every second. So the recovery is insane. And because we are using Sovereign Revelation in the right ring slot, we also regenerate a lot of energy shield per second. And because we regenerate a shit ton of mana per second as well, the mind over matter interaction means we have insane recovery. We basically can recover 6k damage per second. Pretty insane, right? That's also part of our defenses. The main defenses of this build, so it's the insane recovery. We have around 6k EHP, a little bit more than that if you use Clarity with its Watcher's High mod for damage taken on mana. You basically have 6k 5 HP if you do that. Pretty good. With insane recovery, 100% spell suppression if you get some on your gear. Here as well, we use Wind Dancer, insane in terms of defenses. You should take it if you pass here, by the way. And obviously we are evasion based with Grace. Oh, I didn't have Grace activated actually. That's why I took some weird damage at a moment. The main problem of this build is chaos damage. We have mana 60 chaos damage because there is only 2 pieces of gear where we can get chaos resistance, so it's pretty bad. This is the main issue, okay, of this build. But at the same time, the number one defense is clearly freezing everything with Host of Winter. And to be able to freeze with our lightning damage, we simply convert it with Call of the Brotherhood. And another cool tech is that we can use this node thanks to this Thread of Hope, for example. And now we only need, instead of 0.3 second of a base freeze to be able to freeze for 2 seconds, we only need now 0.18 seconds. Is a second freeze is enough to freeze a boss for 2 seconds, or 50% freeze, basically 50% chill, which is pretty insane. And since we are attacking with very high speed and a lot of projectiles, we basically perma freeze everything on the map, as you saw in the gameplay footage. And it's the same thing with bosses, if you are wondering. Every boss I've faced was permanently frozen, which is 50% reduce action speed, which is completely insane. So yeah, the defense pretty good. The offense obviously is excellent for the currency poured into this build. Let's check POB now, because I think there is no more interaction to talk about. This is my actual character, which is so around 16 million damage with Culling Strike, Culling DPS, I guess. On the configuration, nothing is abused. We have Power Charge and Friend Charge, thanks to Charge Mines. Gale Force is inactivated right now. We always have a flash active, but doesn't matter, it doesn't change anything. Maybe we can reach Shattered against bosses, it doesn't work, yeah. We always shock, and we always have Manastorm buff, because that's how the build works, obviously. Enemy is obviously always chilled for the max effect of chill, because a frozen enemy always counts a maximum chill effect of 30. The enemy is obviously always frozen. This node is only for this mastery. We'll talk about it later, which is an insane mastery, because look at that, 30% more damage after 10 seconds of freeze. This is bonkers, an absolute insane amount of multiplier, and I'm thinking about getting it into the build, but we will see later. The enemy is always shocked, and I only put 25 shock here, which is very low, a very low shock, considering you can, for example, get that with 30% increased effects of lightning elements, for example, and we have pretty high average damage, and obviously a good roll on our damage, because we are lightning based. And if we go to the calculations per Siphon of the damage, our damage, yeah, the average damage varies a lot. Okay, damage varies heavily, so a good roll will put a good shock on the enemy. I put 25 because it is what I get on most bosses I've played so far, Baran, Verinatia, and so on and so on. It is around 25 shock, usually. This is for Host of Spring, which we do not have at the moment, so it is not activated. And as we can see, we have nothing else activated. Unbound also deactivated at the moment. Arcane Cloak not activated because it is not always up, so I don't want to put it up. Indigon is at 0, and we have only the brand activated. So if we remove the brand, 11 million damage. If we activate the brands and the curse on it, 15 million damage. Okay? Then it's Grace. When Brass is not activated, it is just to show that Brass is pretty useless, only 10% more damage. So don't put Grace here. Manastorms give so much added lightning damage that Grace is very useless. And Clarity is only here to showcase the EHP with Watcher's High, which grants, oh, can't see. Fuck. The Watcher's Eye, which grants 10% of damage taken with Clarity to mana. So we can deactivate that, and it doesn't change anything. To charge, nothing. Okay, so this is very fair damage. Okay, there is nothing abused here. And in the config, there is 15% more damage. This is from this node that POB doesn't take into account, and 10% more damage, which isn't taken care and into account here. Basically, we can remove that if you want, but it doesn't matter. This is, and if you're wondering what this adds lightning damage is for, this is for the Arcane Cloak rotation, because anyone with a brain right now or knowing how Arcane Cloak works realized that we are actually using Manastorm. We are not automating it, we are actually using it. The problem with Manastorm and Arcane Cloak is that when you use Arcane Cloak, obviously you burn your mana, you get the full Arcane Cloak buff, okay, but you only burn the remaining 36 of your mana for Manastorm. So you only get 18% of your mana as added lightning damage when you use Arcane Cloak. So for POB, this is that basically. It's 1 to 800 lightning damage. So basically why I do that is that to showcase that if we look at the damage on the side, okay? Damage on the side, 15 million, okay? Now we go into the Arcane Cloak rotation. So remove Manastorm buff. It is here, it is written here. And activate Arcane Cloak. And the mana spend on Indigan, which is around 340 at the moment. So now you see that we have pretty much the same damage. Okay, so basically the idea is that this is the damage when you press Arcane Cloak for 4 seconds, because our Arcane Cloak lasts 4 seconds. Okay, this is our damage with Arcane Cloak, the ending and proc, and the remaining mana on Manastorm. Let's do all of that to the normal version, and this is with Convocation. So when you use Convocation, and so when you use Convocation, you obviously spend 0 mana. Okay, so you don't have Indigon buff, but you have full Manastorm buff. Okay, so as you see, the damage is pretty much the same on both rotations. Okay, we will talk later how to abuse this, but it's not implemented yet. So now you must be wondering, how do I improve this build? Because this is shit gear. Okay, remember, this is shit as fuck gear. So how do you improve your gear? You improve your gear first with a good one. This is a good one. Okay, pretty much the best you can get. This is around 30 divines. Good one, thank you very much. 20 million damage. And you are like, oh, isn't there like another upgrade I can do before investing in an insane wand? And that's the sad reality of this build, because we have so many uniques, and our 2 rare is basically, you know, life resistances. There is not a lot of ways you can improve damage except through big purchases. Basically, all the good upgrades is the wand, getting a good wand, getting this minion instability, it is around 10% more damage than solipsism. So I actually have solipsism at the moment. Okay. And I have a point anointed prodigal perfection. So if you get minion instability and you get these nodes, you can now anoint Crusader. That's why it's 10% more damage actually. Then the next big upgrade, or upgrade at all actually, is getting 4 points here to use Forbidden Flesh and Forbidden Flame. And there is Avatar of the Wilds and Oath of Springs are the two main ones. Oath of Springs is around 20% more damage, and Avatar of the Wild is obviously insane in terms of burst damage. I would only take Oath of Spring if you take this node, because this node increases duration of lighting elements, so you can maintain your Oath of Spring for at 50 shock all the time. In PoB, I've only put 35 stacks. So as you can see, it is not even a PoB warrior thing right there. Other good options are Gale Wind, 50% more damage, and Focal Point. But at the same time, it is 4 points for only 15% more damage. It's not a lot. For 4 points, if you don't go for Forbidden Flame, Forbidden Flesh, on one of these two, I wouldn't go for Focal Point or Gale Wind. I'd rather put my 4 points somewhere else. One of the main node I would probably take would be here, these 3 points, and this enemy permanently take 5% increased damage for each second they've been frozen by you. This is basically after 10 seconds, there is synergy obviously with Glass-like Cage. So after 10 seconds, the enemies take 30% more damage until the end of the fight, which is pretty insane against tanky boss. So yeah, I think the Gold Master is excellent. It's probably, I think it's actually even better than Oath of Spring in my mind. I actually do think that. And it's one less point. And yeah, it's pretty amazing. So let's just say we have taken Oath of Springs, just, you know, for the purpose of this being average damage. What is the next big purchase? Series Dot. I think the next big purchase is getting to level 100, so you can actually get this node. You just remove these nodes, for example, or rather you change things around a bit. Oh, sorry, you change things around a bit. I don't know what you want to do. Maybe do that, for example. And you can use Cold Mastery, or you can remove other stuff that are not very worth it in terms of damage if you want. For example, this is not actually very worth it in terms of damage, but it's nice quality of life. Natural Concussion is a nice quality of life. Then another options for damage is to completely tell yourself, I'm going to freeze everything and not care about anything else. So you deactivate Grace. So you can now remove Arrogance. Oh yeah, we're using Arrogance. Why? I don't know if I talked about it, but basically, because we are using Grace with Eternal Blessing, you can't use a mine with Eternal Blessing, basically. Okay, as you can see, doesn't let me do it. I just can't. Okay, if I put Arrogance, I can. Okay, so if you want, you can remove Grace and what the fuck? You can remove Grace and you can put Hypothermia or Trap and Mind Damage, one of the two you like the most. I think Hypothermia is better, personally. It's not the best in terms of pure damage on PoB, but in practicality, it is the best. Cruelty also works if you don't want to change your, if you have, like me, 3 reds, okay? But to be honest, I think green would have been better than a 3rd red. But because, you know, this is pretty much the same as Trap and Mind damage, so yeah, it's whatever, whichever you want, you prefer. Okay. So that's one way. That's one way to do it. So with all of these upgrades, a good wand, Host of Spring, or the Freeze Mastery, and Moving Grace, we now have 30 million DPS. And you can get even more damage if you obviously take both. And now you have 37 million damage. I guess we can do that. Oh yeah, because I removed that. I was like, why is the damage so low? Yeah, that's because of that. Oh, yeah. Damage is pretty cool. For not a lot more divines. Basically, you have 40 million damage for 40 divine investment, basically. Yeah. I don't think removing Grace would be that bad because we are freezing. Once again, we are freezing Premi everything. So, and we don't care about dying here and there. I have a custom death portal, so yeah. We don't use many sockets, as you can see. We have a lot of weird sockets going on right now, but on the POB you can see that the mandatory sockets are very few actually. So you can perfectly put a custom death portal setup. So do we really care about dying here and there? I don't think so. And even without Grace, the HP is quite good. I think if you drop Grace, you can drop that here probably. Yeah, I'd probably do that actually, and put the points elsewhere. Though you need this strength node, but I guess you can get it on your boots or your gloves. Just make better ones than I did. You can pretty much remove all these points. Now you have 11 points, and yeah, you can get even more damage if you want. But your only defense is now spell suppression, good HP, and permafrozen, which is, in my eyes, more than enough in softcore. And yeah, pick a blind chance to hit on it with attacks here, by the way. That's pretty much the idea behind the build. Now I just want to enter a bit of a weirder version of the build, which is the plan I'm going to next, because in my opinion I'm just going to level to 96, I think, and stop there, 96 or 97, and stop here, on this version at least of the build, I think. And then I will decide if I want to invest more or not. And basically, what I want to do next is very complicated, so follow me. We now automate Arc and Cloak with less duration support. Okay. Okay. Why we do that? We do that because now Arc and Cloak as, where is it? Yeah, Arc and Cloak now add a skill cooldown of 4 seconds, obviously. And if we put another enchant, this one, window of opportunity here, 50% reduced skill effect duration. Okay, this doesn't affect tinctures. Tinctures are not considered skill. Okay. So if we get window of opportunity with less duration, we now have skill duration of 1. If we manage to get the cooldown to 1 second, to 1 less seconds, for example with cooldown recovery on the boots, for example, that's one way you can do it, for example. Or you use Solipsis on Matchbane, impossible escape on Matchbane here, and you put those 3 points here. Plus the Arcane Chemistry nodes is pretty good as well. Or you just travel here for 7 points, for example, if you remove these, as we said. Add on, yeah. And now we have an Arcane Cloak that lasts around 5 seconds, yes. And less skill effect duration, 4 seconds in 1, 4 seconds and 8 seconds. So just find some cooldown somewhere, maybe on your boots, for example, with let's craft some boots with Shaper influence, I think it is, and we go cooldown. I think cooldown recovery rate. Yeah, let's go cooldown recovery rate. Up, took, and now we have a 4 second duration, total duration of your Arcane Cloak. This looks like quite a lot of investment, but this allows us to run both Indigon and full Manastorm at the same time, because basically the idea would be you burn your mana with Convocation, recover your mana in 2 seconds, you then have an automation on your Arcane Cloak, so it triggers after 2 seconds. You trigger it, or after 1 second, doesn't really matter, but 2 seconds is good, because we basically spend then more mana. Automation will spend the mana. okay, of Arcane Cloak. So you will proc Indigon, but you will not sacrifice your mana. So you will only spend. We can show. We will only spend 65%. Okay, let's activate it. I guess it's this one, I suppose. Okay, so we will see. Tack, as you can see. Okay, it only did spend 65% of our mana. It didn't trigger Manastorm. Okay, and then we regen back to full in less than 2 seconds. Okay, see, up, I do that. Okay, back, I go back to our mana, I do that, I sacrifice, and so on and so on. Obviously, it doesn't work right now because I didn't do the build right. I didn't do the mechanics. The gem setup is not right. Okay, but that would allow for perfect rotation, or almost perfect rotation, of having Manastorm, of having a full Indigon effect, which completely, it's stupid how much damage we get. Okay, even if we remove a lot of damage here, for example, we still get stupid amounts of damage. But yeah, that's one way you can do it. Okay, maybe I'll go this way. I have not think too much about it, because at the same time, what I'm wondering is it really worth the pain in the ass? I don't know. Maybe not. I don't really know. But it can be great. Okay, it can be a great way to do things. Yeah. So that's basically the global idea of the build. And just to show, this is the macro which automate everything. And there is another macro I'm using to press, basically press Lavienga Spirit whenever I use any other spells. So basically whenever I use Arcanist Brand, it will use, I think it's suspended right now, it will use Lavienga Spirits at the same times. Okay, same if I want to stop my automation on detonate. Okay, it doesn't detonate, now I activate it and it detonates. Okay, so there is in fact 2 macros. That's basically the idea of the build. Very interesting build mechanically, a bit of a headache, as you can see, but with great potential. I don't know if I will push this build, but I give you guys pretty much all the ideas that really stuck. There is a lot of shit on the POB because I obviously tested a lot of variation, a lot of ideas, but that's basically the build right now. And if you have any question, feel free to ask. Thank you for listening, guys. Goodbye.